Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I'm going to be able to work on a Shimano reel. This is the Shimano Bantam Crestfire. It's one that I got in a bunch of bargain lot reels. You can tell it's lost or has its faded glory, if you will. A lot of sun damage on the reel. It hasn't been fished in quite some time. Makes a lot of noise. And well, this is typically what I try to find when I want to give a reel a second chance. So it's functioning. It's a nice reel. I like the Bantams a lot, but this one is suffering from inattention. We're going to show you how to give it the attention that it needs. Service this reel, put it on a pole, and take it fishing. So I want to start just loading up these two handle knobs. I notice that there's a lot of greening going on inside and a lot of complaining from those knobs as I turn them. Well, we're going to take this reel completely apart, show you how it's made, how to service it, and how to keep it fishing or let it go fishing again. And if you like those types of videos, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. And if you do subscribe to my channel, please use that notification button. It'll let you know when I'm posting. And well, you can determine if that's a video you want to watch. Today we're working on a Shimano low-profile bait casting reel from the early 2000s. Tomorrow, who knows? You're watching over my shoulder in my shop as I do the service on these reels, and I'm never quite sure what's going to come in. This one I kind of had on the side for some time now. I wanted to service it and put it back into use again. As I mentioned, it came in a lot of reels. There's a bunch of folks that are selling reels for parts and the like. I'm going to suggest that perhaps this one wound up in that bucket because, well, it just doesn't look that pretty. But you know what? The fish can't see that reel. They don't know what's on the other side of it, and I like to call this one, well, shoemaker's children, because, well, this is the type of reel I rescue, and I'm not ashamed to fish it. So it will go fishing again. All right, I just used a little rod and reel cleaner to clean off some of the debris that was on the handle. And once I take the pieces and parts off, like I did earlier with that nut, I put those into a parts tray. That parts tray helps me keep track of it. I suggest whatever your system of organization is for the parts that you remove, that you determine that before you start removing those pieces and parts. It's pretty tough to go and find pieces and parts if you don't have that organization. They have a way of finding different places to go hide, and well, that can ruin a day. All right, well, I just put a little penetrating oil on there just to lubricate that up. I'm going to return this so that I can take it off. It goes in a counterclockwise manner, and eventually it does come off. This is a nicely made reel. That's a nice heavy coating of metal plating on there. It's not some little plastic parts somewhere. Well, I like to clean the pieces and parts as I take them off. That way it makes it easier for me during reassemble. One of the things that's important about fishing reel service and maintenance is that you inspect all the pieces and parts, that you do a good cleaning on the reel, and well, most of the time you're going to find that there's old greases and dirt in the reel. You want to clean that up, and then of course you want to re-lubricate before you reinstall. All right, I'm using a Phillips head screwdriver now to remove the case screws on this side. This is, I don't know, early graphites. I said 2000, maybe it's even the 1990s. Probably should have taken a look before. But you can tell a couple of things. This does not have a swing out non-gear side plate assembly. It has a side plate assembly here that's got nuts and bolts on both sides. And well, I think I've loosened them enough that I should be able to remove the side plate. Yep, here we go. Okay, just checking inside to make sure everything is okay here. Quick look. It's a good place to tell you to take pictures. Those 4 side plate screws are the same. They're going to go into my parts tray so I don't lose them. This is a typical view inside of a Shimano reel of this era. This reel has a couple of features on it that we might as well go talk a little bit about. This has a bearing here. The pin just came out. This pin is the anti-reverse pin. It goes over there on the anti-reverse dog. There's a shim bushing that goes on the post under the bearing. This is a sealed bearing. No wonder it's running so well. All sealed on one side anyway. The outer side is got a little bit of dirt on it. It's a shielded bearing. So we'll just put some oil on there, let that seep in. The rest of the inner case is clean, so we don't need to do anything there. It's sun faded. You really can't do much with sun fade. This is the piece that goes underneath. And there's a friction washer or two. Take the pictures so that you know how to reinstall where they belong in the sequence. Alright, so those are your two friction washers. There's a flat washer, a friction washer that's keyed, and the spacer. Next I want to make sure that I get rid of these, not rid of, but I pull these quickly, get them in my parts tray because those springs always want to shoot. And then we should be able to remove the main gear. Another function on this is that the line guide is turned by the main gear. So when you go into free spool, the line guide is going to stay stationary. What that means is when you cast, you want to make sure that the line guide is centered. That's going to make it equidistant for the line to come out and will provide the least resistance. If you go to cast and your line guide is one side or the other, that means that the line on this side is going to be traveling. It's going to go all the way over here and then try to come all the way back to the line guide in your pole, and it's going to make for an inefficient cast. So again, just make sure as you go to cast a reel like this that it's centered so that you have a kind of equal stress or tension both ways. Let's see if we can get these off. Sometimes they're hard. This one came off pretty easy. Then we have our plate and a key washer underneath that. This is dirty, so we're going to fix that. This is the pin that came out before, and this is your anti-reverse system. There is no instant anti-reverse on this reel. It's the classic winged dog and click ratchet. Well, like I said, I like to clean my pieces and parts as I take them off. Sometimes you're going to need an assist, maybe some degreaser, some oil, like a penetrating oil perhaps. Maybe you're going to need a hard brush. In this case, for the click ratchet anyway, a paper towel will suffice. When you take this finger jointed one off, you need to check, make sure that it's still in good condition. This one is. Now they don't match all the way. You can see they don't touch all the way there, but they do have to be close. And then that's going to install just like this. You're going to take the tip of that click ratchet, put it in that opening. That's how it installs on that piece. I'm going to put that into a tray near that pin. And then this is our bottom of the assembly. I think we're going to find two drag washers in here. At least that's my thought. I'm just cleaning the dirt off the bottom one. So this will be on the bottom of the post here, followed by the bottom washer. There should be a drag washer here. There is. These are usually, over time, they get stuck. Oh, this one's in good condition. Okay. This is a hard washer. Don't attempt to flex it. You may snap it. That doesn't need any type of lubrication on it. It just needs to make sure that it's not stuck to the other washers. And this is the one that's a felt washer here. I'm going to attempt to get this one out. There we go. Well, it's not felt. It's another hard washer. I thought it was the felt. Some of these have felt in them. Probably more the spinning wheel variety. Make sure that your cavity on your main gear is clean. Check the teeth on the main gear. I like to take a hard brush, pull it through. And while you're doing this, examine the teeth on the gear to make sure that the teeth are straight and they're not bent or anything. If you see any kind of dirt and debris in there, go ahead and grab something like a pick like this. Maybe you want to grab a micro screwdriver. Maybe you want to use a safety pin. Just make sure you get into those teeth. I'm just noticing there's a little bit of dry grease in here. So while I do this, I want to encourage you to ask questions. The whole idea behind Second Chance Tackle is to teach you how to service your reels and keep them fishing for a long time to come. Hopefully, so that I don't wind up on a pile of parts reels for sale like this one did. And I think I did pretty good here, in that this one's definitely going to get a second chance. Now, I'm not going to be able to pretty up the UV damage on the case. But as I mentioned earlier, the fish don't see what you're fishing with. They don't pay attention to the cost of the reel. All they want to do is spit that hook. Alright. Okay, got them all. Alright. You can tell if you've put these off to the side and you haven't been sure about them. This has got the matching side plate here for that drag washer. And now I'm going to reload that with some grease. Please use fishing reel grease. I'm going to use Penn Precision Reel grease here. Just get a good amount onto the teeth. Don't overload it because it's only going to get pushed off. You should be able to see the ridges of the teeth after you've put the grease on. I'm just going to set that off to the side. I'm going to line that up here. So I'm not going to put these into the parts tray, but I am going to leave them here. I know the orientation. Next out, I want to pull out the yoke. That could be one reason why the thing was running as it is. On your yoke, you're going to notice that there's two sides. There's a side that has a ramp, and there's a side that's flat. The ramp is going to face inward. On your pinion gear, you're going to have one side with a slot and the other side with the gears. The gears are going to face the main gear or away from the spool. Check those, they were clean. Check them, they were conforming. So let's put that back in then. Slot, ramps, forward. Okay. The rest of this you do not need to remove. I like to just give it a quick shot of some penetrating oil, just in case there's some dirt in here. It's very clean, so you don't need to remove that. Just out of curiosity, I am going to pull this center post. I'm not sure if there's a bearing in here or not. But on a reel like this that hasn't been serviced, it doesn't take much to make it cry out for oil and that. And, well, if there's a bearing in there, we don't want to miss it. It's a bushing. Okay, well, we can still do the same. We can put some oil on there. I think probably could, if you wanted to, replace that bushing with a bearing. I think that the Shimano engineers have done a fine job with this reel. I don't know if you need to upgrade to a bearing there. You could. Alright, just put those back. And we can finish rebuilding this side. And turn our attention to the spool and the other side of the reel. And to the line guide, because it all needs to be serviced in order for it to be maximum in terms of performance. Okay, we've serviced all those parts. Let's put it back together again. There's a stud that belongs in here for the anti-reverse, followed by the anti-reverse ratchet. You need to set that over the post and guide it in so that it seats properly. Give it a test, make sure that that dog is pulling in and out. We have that little spacer washer goes next. Then we have the main gear assembly. Well, I think what we'll do next is put the yoke and pinion assembly back on. This has been greased. There's ramps on both sides and there's a slot or a ramp that falls up. That goes, let's put that in next. There's two springs that go on top of that. It's a good time to put those on. Take the gear assembly, which has been serviced. Bring that in. And we had a flat washer, a tension washer, and we had the bearing spacer. And now we can align the case and put that together. Make sure that these two wings, case screw, these two wings fit in the slots on each side here. So go for aligning that. Make sure you get a nice tight seal like that all the way around for the case. Take those 4 screws then, bring those in, and I like to go high-low, side to side, kind of an X pattern when I reinstall these slots. That way you can avoid having unequal tension in this and perhaps breaking a piece or apart because something is getting trapped in there. Alright, well, that's the gear side service. It's 2 of them, 2 more. And then we'll turn our attention to the line guide mechanism and to the spool service side. And we'll get this one out there with a second chance. So one of the things you want to do when you're servicing of the reel, you want to check to make sure there are no broken pieces or parts. And while the internal gear side is as it should be, very dry, unserviced in quite some time, but other than that, they're totally capable of pulling in the fish. I expect that we'll have some nice performance improvements on the reel as well. So I think this reel, I think maybe earlier I said probably 2000. I think it's, judging by this, it's probably closer to 1990. All right, I want to turn the reel so that I can bring the screw cap over to the side. I'm going to spray this whole assembly here with some penetrating oil. There's some dust and dirt on here that the penetrating oil will help dissolve. I'm going to use a screwdriver then to remove this cap, and this is a plastic cap, so you do need to be very careful when you remove it and when you reinstall it. They can fracture, and if you fracture them, well, you're not going to find a replacement now. Alright, make sure that the shoulders on your pawl are clean of the debris and dirt. Make sure that the points on the pawl are nice and even and symmetrical, and you can see there's a lot of dirt on this one, so it wouldn't surprise me. I call this one the castle effect. You have a whole bunch of these little studs that stick up on these, and if you over tighten, they tend to get cracked. And if they crack, they don't hold the pawl down very well, and well, the reel's performance suffers as a result. You want to reinstall this. One of the things you can do, I have sprayed that with penetrating oil. If you were worried about the dirt on it, with that pawl removed, just turn the reel, hold a cloth on it, and that will bring off all the dirt that's inside that. If you leave the pawl in while you're trying to do that, that line guide's going to move back and forth. Drop your finger or something. Okay, just hold your finger on the pawl until you feel it seat. And when you see it's moving back and forth easily, you can put that cap back on. This one says this reel was made in Singapore. Okay, back down. While I have this kind of exposed, I want to take a paper, plastic or cotton swab. Clean out the internals to the extent that I can reach that. There's just dirt in here, so this looks like it's probably was sitting in that bucket for some time. I think I got it at a flea market, so that would explain the dust and the dirt. 4 screws on this side as well. Let's take those off. Again, that's kind of an indication when the reel was made as well. A lot of these, the newer reels now have the little trip switch where you can just move the side plate, quarter of a turn, and everything will come off. The earlier ones were kind of bolted on. So I'll put this right around 1990, 91, somewhere in that area. I don't know. Been a while. Some people just give them up on them because they're no longer fashionable. They want to go with the latest and greatest. Something like this, the design is a very nice design. It's still compact. It's got a high speed inside of it. There's no reason why this one can't fish for a long time to come. Okay, we should be able to remove the little adjuster button. The mag assembly. Now don't go fooling around with the mags. The spool. And in this case we have rubber or plastic bushings on both sides. So other than to do something like take the line off, which I'm going to have to do at some point anyway, you really don't need to get underneath there. One of the things to note on this bushing is there are 2 slots, and those slots do need to mesh with the 2 slots that are right here. There is a pin on that, I think. Is there a pin on that? No. Okay, so you can do that manually to ensure that you've got it set properly. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Just going to grab that with the pliers. I use this micro pliers quite a bit. Look for the 2 studs. Align them with the slots inside. And you'll know your bushing's set properly when it's flush to the case, and this it's not flush to the case, so we'll do it again. If it remains proud, then what happens is you don't get a good seal. All right, that's correct. I'm going to take a little bit of steel wool and just polish this shaft here, the back shaft there. The the magnetic surface that it's going to break to is okay. Some grease both sides. You can grease that area where the bushing is going to ride. We can reinstall the spool. Bring our case on. Now this is just a little bit of corrosion, and the magnets are fine. Don't mess with that. There's no need to. Just trying to line this up with the screw sections. Okay, all set. Spring bushing goes on. Actually, that's on the top of the case. Knob is next. And that little spring washer in the case. And in this situation, I guess I left the case screws in. That's okay. Tighten it all up. So this one might be a case where if you did want to hot rod the reel, replacing those spool bushings with bearings would definitely improve the performance of this reel. All right, one more to go. We'll put the handle on, give it a test. So when I found this at the flea market, I found it on a 7.5-foot pole, medium action. And, well, I think I'm going to put it right back on that same pole. The pole was not a Shimano pole. The pole was a Daiwa pole, of all things. I wonder if that's like putting a Chevy engine in a Ford. People get upset about that. All right. Tighten that handle, screw down. Tighten your drag down so that you can fully tighten that screw. If your flat side is perpendicular to your tie-down hole, you generally can line this up just a little bit past. That should do it. Tie down the screw and then we'll give it a test. Alright, very solid reel. Nice pieces and parts, quality throughout in materials. Let's see how we did. Oh, look at that. Nice and easy and smooth this thing turns. Casting wise, well, it's not going to throw long because it's got bushings. You can use the spool adjuster to some extent to improve performance. It's not going to change it very much. But if you're casting heavier lures, that's not going to be that much of a difference. All right, the only thing I got to do before I put this in the water is to remove that line, replace it, and take it fishing, see how we did. Well, this is a prologue to the servicing of the reel that we just finished. The thought occurred to me that there's a chance that I might be able to speed up the performance of this reel by putting bearings in instead of bushings. Sometimes that's called hot rodding a reel. I don't know if anybody would spend their time normally doing that, but I think that we're going to try that out. Just what the heck, sometimes you just want to spend some money to learn. I call that tuition. And if I can find the bearings that are the size of the bushings, there's a chance. We'll see what the performance does. We'll all try and learn a lesson from that here. So I'm going to start by just doing kind of reversing what we just did here and pulling off this side plate which has the spool. And there was one bushing on the spool and there was one bushing in the case, I believe, if I remember. Hasn't been that long, right? And let's see what we can do here. All right, that comes off. This comes off. This is our, well, that's kind of interesting. We're going to find out. So I got one on each side here. And what I'm going to try and do now is find a bearing that is the same size. Let's shut this off. We'll be right back. Well, sometimes you just get lucky. I went to my bearing tray. I actually found two that should be the substitutes for those. So we're going to give that a try. The one has got a wider inner diameter. That's going to go over this side of the spool. The one has got a narrower one. That's going to go on the back side of the spool. I'm going to oil both of these. Now, caution, these are used. They came off of a reel that, well, had some parts that they could be reused, and that's kind of the way I am. If I can reuse it, I'm going to try and do that. So let's see how we do. This is going to go back into here. We're going to move the spool now. We'll see if we can get this lodged in. Now, these do not have the little points on them that the original piece did, and that's because, well, we're going to just try and seat this in here. It looks like it seats fine. We're going to bring our mag adjuster, make sure that gets in there. Put that case back on. And I guess this will tell all in terms of whether this is a success or not. So what we can find from this, or what we can learn from this, is a lot of times the bushings are capable of being upgraded. and they are the same size as the bearings. A lot of times manufacturers use the same assembly lines to create multiple models of their fishing reel and multiple price points, and sometimes the multiple price point was nothing more than saving a couple of pennies on those bearings versus bushings to allow them to introduce a less expensive reel. So how do you get the more expensive reel from a less expensive reel? Well, you kind of improvise like this one, swap them out. A lot of folks like doing that, particularly on like the spinning reels. A lot of the early spinning reels have this bushing versus bearing kind of thing going on. And so far it seems like it's going to hold. Haven't tried anything yet, of course, but that's the second part of the education. Okay, they fit. Does it work? So let's find out. I think I got one screw left here that doesn't seem to be just right. I think that screw's got a worn head on it. I'm going to go to a micro driver here. Okay, let's see what happens here. Does the reel turn? Oh, it certainly turns, and there's no question about that. How does it cast? Oh, it's hard for you to see because it's a black spool, but that spool is spinning so much easier now that we've replaced it with the bearings. Very nice. Well, I see I did one thing incorrectly here. There's a little spool washer that goes on the back of this. But for now, we're going to end this video with lessons learned as I go about taking this apart. And so I hope that you've all enjoyed that little thing. My tuition paid out in this case. I'm going to put some line on this, go see how it casts. The lesson learned here is you can swap bushings for bearings, and sometimes it even works. I want to thank our safety workers, our police, fire, rescue, safety folks, EMTs and the like, for what it is that you do day in and day out. And well, I want to wish everybody a great time on the water, lots of friendships to be made and maintained, and well, a fun time for all. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.